¿Qué pasa, campeones? Welcome to Churros y Tácticas Podcast. It is Tuesday, the 14th of March, and yes, Kiyan, myself, are here to discuss the 9-point lead that Barca still remains to have to this day. It is Tuesday. We are days away from El Gran Clásico, part 2 of the season, part 2 of the trilogy to take place over in the Spotify Camp Nou. Let me tell you something. The tension is back. It's back. We wanted it. We got what we asked for. The rivalry and hostility is back in El Clásico. And thank God.
We actually did want it.
Be good.
We asked for this.
We wanted it.
It was too many hugs in the Clásico like 2 years ago. We did an entire podcast. Like, why are these guys friends? Like, bring back the old days. Bring back the blood, the cleats on the studs, on the toes.
It always felt weird. Yes. It always felt weird. Too much friendship, too much hugging, too much patting each other in the back. We are destined to not like each other, which is what makes this podcast Churros y Tácticas so unique and so good. So welcome.
Well, we just had a 10-minute argument off air about who should do the intro, and both of us were surprised that neither of us were expecting to do it. I mean, you won Asan Mames, and yeah, I mean that's it. Why would I do the intro? Yep. Can you think of any reason 100%. At all? I can't think of any reason. I will say this. No. I think here's one football related item to start with. I think we were both wrong about Xavi. I was wrong because I didn't believe he was tactically versatile enough to get wins. And he's been able to grind out 1-0, 1-0, 1-0, 1-0, 1-0, 1-0, not playing the brand of football that the media likes to associate with Barcelona in Catalonia. And you were wrong because you thought that you were wrong because you thought that he was going to bring this quote unquote Pep DNA, whatever, Barca DNA.
Listen, excuse me, if there's one person or one group of people that should feel still nightmares in the wrath of Xavi's style of football, it should be Madridistas, because we've been handing your ass in these Clásicos since Xavi.
Why? Like, there can't be like one sentence where we don't bring up Real Madrid. What does that have to do with Real Madrid? I'm just saying.
Listen, you can't put out one tweet that doesn't name Barca. You can't put out one podcast without talking about Barca. So what are you trying to tell me?
No, man? But I'm just saying, like, I'm talking to you about Xavi's playing style, and you're saying, well,
yes, and I'm saying that
this to you guys.
Madrid, we played. Yeah, we did.
What would happen if Real Madrid didn't exist? Would you guys just like zip your mouths up like you would just have no voice?
Kiyan, did you watch Athletic Club against Barca?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then you shouldn't be saying that, framing it in this context as if we were just sitting back, absorbing. It was a very different game than we played in the Bernabeu, for example.
You had more possession. You did not have the better chances, but
good chances, as did they.
As did they, for sure. No, my point is less about one particular game and more about it's a compliment. If in case you didn't get that part, the overarching point is that I've been impressed with
backhanded compliment.
No, it's not. It's not. It's not. It's absolutely not. It's a genuine compliment because this is what gets you wins, not playing your other style of football, which doesn't work against the best teams. This is what is getting you guys wins right now. This is a good thing. You guys have completely locked your defense. I mean, also Ter Stegen is a superhuman right now. He's unbelievable. But just the ability to grind out results and win ugly if you need to is a huge asset to have. Like it's great. He's more tactically versatile than I thought he was going to be. I'll give him that. It's a compliment. I don't know what to tell you. This is not meant as an insult. It was not meant to bring up Real Madrid at all.
No, I'm just saying, like, you're framing it in a way where Xavi cannot play the style of football that
I think
want to see.
Well, I think that's in some ways proven. Like if he doesn't have the resources, he can't play that way. If Barca don't have Pedri on the field, they're a completely different team.
Pedri, okay.
If Pep didn't have Xavi and Iniesta on the field, it would be a different team. Like that's my point. Like you have to be tactically versatile when you don't have all the right pieces, right?
I got you. I'm sorry, Kiyan. It's been a tense week. I'm touching.
It has been. Listen, man. No, it has been tense. And it is what it is. I think, obviously, the fact that I think Real Madrid finally broke silence was, I think, a huge tipping point in this whole thing, and also adding to the tension for sure. And I don't know, I actually don't know necessarily where you stand authentically, in part because, as some people may know, you and I don't talk that much outside the podcast. We interact every day, sharing memes.
We hate each other.
Yeah, well, we interact every day sharing memes.
We laugh.
But we intentionally don't talk about football because there's a more authentic feel to the podcast when you save everything for the podcast. It's not rehearsed. It's not repeated. And so we intentionally just save everything for the podcast.
Even the way we are here, we are in our tweet or our rare messages as well, meaning
Yeah. The
authenticity is not staged. Neither would it be if we were to communicate.
For sure. Yeah. But because this is a free podcast and not the patron edition, I don't know necessarily where you authentically stand on what's happening. I know what you have to say today. But I don't know, because, for example, I have Kool-Aid friends. I have many Kool-Aid friends. You'd be unbelievably shocked at how much of my social circle is Kool-Aid. So many. Some of my
really?
I'd say, yeah. I have a bunch of quote unquote best friends. 4 or 5 of them are Kool-Aids. And they range from, there's 3 types of them for this particular thing. One is in denial. The other one is ashamed. And the third one is oblivious. He's like, so what's happening? I don't know. I don't care. We don't get this news in Canada. Just tell me when the Clásico is. I'm going to watch it. It's oblivious. And I don't I kind of think I know where you stand on it, but my experience with a lot of this has been, from what I've seen, is a lot of deflection from Barcelona. And I don't know, the evidence is getting pretty damning, to be quite honest. And I don't know necessarily what happens. I don't know if Barca actually get punished. That remains to be seen. I know this is also a very long process. It could take 5 years from what I understand. We may just forget about it in a year or two, and then that's that. I don't know. So I don't even really know how to approach it, other than because we're at the mercy of how much you can say, what you're allowed to say, and what you want to say.
Well, I'm at a point where I just want to, I'll be quite honest, I want this podcast to grow. My commitment to this podcast has been 100%. We've been consistent. We've remained consistent throughout, how long has it been? 5-6 years? Pretty much since I started. I deviated my career from working in the music industry to breaking onto the journalism scene. And from the get-go, from pretty much, the first year we started this podcast, and I've always at least been consistent, committed, and always myself. Now, obviously, when I started to work for La Liga, so already before Barca, but in particular when I came to Barca, of course, yes, I've watched my words at times, but I've also tried to not be oblivious to controversial topics that we've had to discuss. You can't ignore certain elephants in the room, and I was always vocal about my objection to Bartomeu being the president and him wanting to be sacked. I was working at La Liga at the time. And I've been very supportive of Laporta because of, well, because I voted for him as a member, as a socio, because I believe in him, and certainly there are certain criticisms that I think I have placed as well. You can say, well, they haven't been harsh criticisms or not harsh enough. Perhaps for some culés, can talk about his handling of the Messi affair, the handling of the finances, the handling of certain signings. And I think I've always kind of voiced my opinion, and again, sometimes maybe I would have been harsher. The point I'm trying to make here, Kiyan, is I'm at a point where I want to be free as well to talk about these kind of things without any filter or trepidation on a Monday pod, which I think, on a Friday pod is easier to do because we have the paywall. And I'm going to be genuine like I always have been. Another point I want to make, I've never said anything that I didn't believe on this podcast, as far-fetched as some things might have been or sounded to some of our listeners. And I've had my share of rants, incoherent ones.
We had a great UFO segment on Friday, if anyone's interested.
Well, dude, I cannot get enough of it. But Negreira. And I did a pod without you talking about it, where the first opening minutes, I state clearly that in the case we are guilty of bribery, of buying referees' games, then we should be mature enough, responsible enough to deal with the consequences and face the repercussions, however harsh a judge might deem those to be. There's no beating around the bush. I think that is, even as an employee now of the club, that is nothing outlandish to state. That is the law. That is what we all should abide by. The law applies to everyone and everything. So if you break it, there are consequences, right? There are penalties to be paid. What would be fair? What can we expect? Those are conversations that need to be held. In the end, the judge will decide based on the evidence at hand, the evidence provided. So far as I'm concerned, so far as I'm aware, rather, I think the evidence states that there have been verbal agreements to having referees whistle favorably for Football Club Barcelona. I think most people will agree with me that verbal agreements doesn't sound like it's the most tangible, the most strong, let's say, evidence that you might want to have as a judge when deciding if a party is guilty or not. We'll have to wait and see. You said it might take a long time. I have no doubt things in Spain in particular, the bureaucracy, in Mediterranean countries as a whole is long. These kind of processes take a long time. We'll see what more evidence will be revealed. Can I make a quick incision and say that today, throughout the day, I was reading in El Mundo, that is a newspaper that brought out the Messi burofax, the Messi contract affair. They leaked the Messi contract. They are now saying that there are sources that they know that are whispering in their ear that there have been more payments made to Negreira of teams in the first and second division. We'll have to wait and see for more information on that. The point being, Kiyan, is there is no other way to kind of, address this topic without first stating that, and now I guess we've got a whole pod to still talk about whatever you want to bring up and other thoughts of mine, etc. But I want to make that clear once more. I don't know if I've ever said it this clearly, but I don't think I can be any more clear with, my position at first hand. So, yeah.
That's fair. When you say you don't know if a verbal agreement is enough, what were you referring to for the verbal agreement? What do you mean?
Well, I mean, from what I've been reading is that the evidence that has been provided right now to where so there's a difference between una denuncia y una querella, right? This, I think, is being classified as a denuncia, which is, I'll see now if I can find the difference of it in English so that our audience can actually understand. But with the evidence that is basically given, it's class or deemed as, it's not hard evidence, right?
Right.
It's a verbal agreement. So how do you prove there's been a verbal agreement? So I think the idea behind it is there's the suspicion of payments being made to have referees favor Barca, right? The suspicion of, as opposed to there is clear evidence that Barca have paid referees. The clearest evidence is that Barca have paid Negreira. There's been a payment, right? There have been payments made.
Yeah.
Throughout 17 years, adding up to 7 million euros to Negreira, vice president at the time of the Spanish Refereeing Federation. There's no denying that. The reasons for those payments, and why is there no denying that? Because there were facturas, right? There are actual invoices. So this is not something that was taking place under the table. There were no maletines, right? To use that word that you like, Kiyan. There you were mentioning last time. There was no maletin.
I was pretty hidden.
Handed over.
I mean,
this was no. This was not hidden. Hacienda knows about these invoices. These invoices were like any invoice. You have to present it to the local tax authority. These were official payments made to Negreira. That's another fact. That's why Hacienda has been studying this case, these payments, for over 2 years now. And that's another thing that I kind of came into my mind is, the Barca offices knew, supposedly, that Hacienda was studying these invoices for the past 2 years.
Okay, so...
Because that was reportadly announced to them. So, there's questions. There's a lot of questions.
For sure. So here's what we know kind of in the timeline that this has happened in, because initially this was a tax audit, right? This was not like a La Liga investigation.
No, Hacienda is the Spanish tax authority, yes.
So they come in and they notice these irregularities where, and then they
payments.
But
not irregularities. They're payments like Bartomeu used to make to, in this case, I'm talking for the last 2 years, to the whole Spygate, right? The Barca Spygate. There have been so many controversies. I don't know if you're keeping up, but where they hired agencies and journalists to defame players, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, yeah, I'm already lost track. Like someone reminded me.
Right, I'm confusing you, but the point is, you're on point.
Yesterday, literally, someone reminded me of, or I actually reminded myself because we did a podcast about BarcaGate that there was also the whole Ruris thing, who obviously is the Media Pro guy, I think owner or CEO or something, one of those things, and he's
the founder, founder.
He's the one who helped activate one of the levers. And then you also had yesterday Media Pro covering Athletic fans' protests against Barca. But
there's no conflict there. I mean, Rodas, Media Pro owns, or used to own, I should say, Barca TV. In fact, Media Pro now owns Real Madrid TV. Telefónica belongs to, or Barca TV belongs to Telefónica. Media Pro, Telefónica are two massive companies. Rodas owns Real Madrid TV. And Rodas has other companies where indeed, as head of this other company, he helped or he acquired.
I could be wrong, but I don't think. I think the Media Pro Real Madrid TV thing was severed a few years ago. I'd have to look it up.
I'm pretty sure.
Are you sure that they're owned right now?
Right to. Joder, last time I checked. I mean,
2019. 2019 it ended, it seems.
Okay. Well, I mean, for many years. Who's the owner now? Telefónica? Did they buy it back?
I don't know.
Anyway, but there's no. I mean, I don't know what conspiracy or what controversy you're trying to spark there, but
well, anyways, it's a different controversy, and then there's the whole Piqué Rubiales thing. There's quite again. This is a lot, but let's focus on this for a second.
Yeah, we don't need to bring up.
But you say they're not hidden. But you say they're not hidden, Diego. But and this kind of goes hand in hand with the report today in El Confidencial. El Confidencial,
yeah.
Barca used up to 7 companies to pay Negreira through various different things and stuff like.
Okay.
Something
there's
nothing wrong with if there was nothing wrong with it, it wouldn't have been all these. You know what I mean? It wouldn't.
I gotcha. Okay, I didn't know this one is new for me. So did that come out today?
Today, yeah, this morning I think. El Confidencial has been shedding a lot of light on this. But ultimately, what I think makes this tricky, and this is part of my skepticism if anything will actually happen, because you're talking about the verbal agreement, and it's hard to prove that Barcelona directly paid referees to be benefited. There's also, I don't know, I'm sure you've seen it by now. It was Cadena Ser and or Mundo Deportivo that leaked some things that were said by Barca executives during that time that Negreira was getting paid, that the reason we're paying him is because Real Madrid are benefiting from the referee, and this is our way of neutralizing it or whatever. So, I mean,
neutralizing it.
That in itself, if it's a real leak and it's not made up, and we'll see. If that's a real leak, then that's already they've admitted it. It's done. Like, right? But I don't know how made up those are. But let's just assume that's not true for just the sake of the argument. What would be tricky for me to prove this is that Barcelona have claimed this is for reports and scouting analysis or something like that, and video analysis, right? But they haven't been able to prove that side of it because there hasn't been anything given in exchange for these payments.
They haven't come out.
Yeah, but they would have by now. Where like this would have been easy if this was the case. Barca could have come out in 1 hour and just like, oh, this is what we paid them for. Yeah, and they haven't, and I don't think it's coming out now. If it hasn't by now. On the flip side, it is also very difficult, even knowing that information, to come back and say, okay, well, you haven't got anything in exchange, and here's the proof that you were benefited by the referees. That part is going to be difficult to prove. Like exactly what Barcelona got in exchange. We can all assume what it was for, but where's the trail that would prove it is difficult for me. Because I've seen Real Madrid accounts put out the stats of penalties and red cards given in favor of Barca during that term. And it's astronomically in Barca's favor. But even that is not proof to me, because you could look at that and be like, well...
look at Madrid's history. Look at the season now. Look at in the past. It's...
Well, that and also... But I mean...
You could say that.
No. Okay. That you can do that about almost any other team. But the numbers in favor of Barcelona are astronomically in their favor. Like, it's not even close. So
in those 20 years...
Yeah.
Which, again, if those payments happen, then if you want to take a bigger sample size, it's Madrid that has been favored more. So, it just depends on
what do you mean by that? How did you measure that?
Well, you just look at most penalties since the beginning of professional football in Spain.
We're doing this thing back to 1900 again.
No, or whatever. I got into like a tweet, battle or whatever, like a conversation with Ivan, one of our listeners.
Yeah,
a beloved Madridista that is very vocal and very passionate about his stance, about his opinions, and often takes issue with what I say on this podcast and tweets at me, even though our relationship online is good, I would say, because there's a mutual Dutch link here. So, and you know, I don't mind it if it's done respectfully, like Ivan always does. But he tweeted me whatever red card stats or penalty stats, and then I tweeted back, you know, for this year. I mean, I think you guys have like 10 penalties in favor. We have, I think now 2. Red card, similar situation. And then I tweeted that with that another stat that since the 50s or something, you look at the team with the most penalties in favor, and it's Madrid that leads the pack by far.
Sure.
So
that may very well be true, Diego, but what we're discussing here is those 20 years.
Yeah, is that time period.
And
I'm saying so, yeah.
And Oz put out a graphic, which I'm looking at now. In those years, Barcelona received the fewest red cards and by far the most opponent red cards. The difference is they've actually kind of did like net difference plus 43. So, which means that they've benefited from this in this particular stat. Penalty. Okay, let me just. I feel like
red cards mean.
Well,
like what does red cards show? I mean, in all honesty, like for example, I know that there was during some time there was one of the Madridistas' favorite stat. Oh, Barca never get a penalty blown against them, whistled against them, and that was during like the Pep golden age. Well, during that time, Barca had like 80 possession of the ball, playing 90% of the time in the opponent's half. Like, I mean, the opponents didn't get to our half. The opponents didn't get the ball.
Right. So, but you're saying what I was essentially going to get to is that the reason why I don't think you can use those numbers to prove anything is because, like, us looking at it from a sporting perspective is that I think one of the explanations, whether you want to hate me or not, if you're a Madridista, is that during the Pep years, for example, is that if Ronaldinho or Messi, had the ball and Barcelona always had the ball, the likelihood of them getting fouled more than anyone, while Barca not having to foul much because they never lose possession, is something you look at as part of the correlation. So you can believe that
Barca agree with what I just said.
Yes, yeah. So you can. That's why I said, like, it's fine to look at those numbers. You can look at it and you can believe whatever you want to believe if you want. But in a court, I don't think that that's going to hold up. This is all the red cards that Barca received. It is a true true fact that Barca received the most red cards to opponents and received the least red cards to themselves. The penalty numbers are also against them in that sense, but it's not enough to like look at that in a courtroom and be like, this is proof that Barca are favored. So my point is, yeah, we can all come to the assumption that Barca paid Negreira and they tried to get benefited from the referee, and they did on some occasions and they didn't on some other occasions. But while we can assume that, I think the proof of it is going to be more difficult to get through. And Barcelona not being able to prove that it was for scouting and video analysis is not enough proof in itself in a courtroom. From the way I understand it, again, I'm not a lawyer, and I always have trouble talking about this stuff. But from what I understand, this is how it's going to be, and it's going to be hard to prove unless if those leaks from Barca executives are real. Then I think it's pretty much. It's irrefutable at that point. but I don't know if those are real yet. I don't think we know.
Let me say this. I want the truth to come out, you know?
Sure.
And I'm willing to face the music and deal with the consequences, but I want the truth to come out. I'll also say I want the full truth to come out in its totality. And if this is a Pandora box-like situation, then may the deepest bottoms ends of that Pandora box, you know, may the secrets be revealed and unveiled, and let there be a complete cleanup of this sport in Spain and
It's
anywhere
quite optimistic
else, for that matter. Yeah.
I just don't even have faith in the system in general, to be honest. And this is something that irks me the most from a selfish perspective, is that I just want to talk about football. And I wish we could. And the fact that we can't a lot of the times is annoying to me, because everything is just corrupt, it seems.
Let me ask you this. Do you think Barca is the only club that has paid Negreira, or people like Negreira in positions like Negreira?
I don't know how to answer that, because ultimately I don't know the answer to that, and I may never know. But
you don't want to know. But
no, of course I want to know. Of course I want to know. But I don't. I kind of do think that they are the only club. And let me explain why. Because if other clubs were doing the same thing, they would have all stayed silent, because they know that their books would get audited too. They all know if they go against Barca that if they weren't clean, then they would get exposed too. So for that reason, yeah, I kind of do believe it's just Barca. Could be wrong, but that's my reasoning behind it.
There's but either way, bad apple.
No, I'm not saying that, but there's bad apples and then there's criminal apples, if you know what I mean. There are unethical things that happen, but then there's law-breaking things. Do you know what I mean?
Come on, bro. Don't do this. Like, I think I've been very forthcoming, very honest. And this naive Kiyan that believes in fairies.
But okay, but you have
the goodwill of the people with the most power around them.
No, but you have to give me a reason to believe it. Like I need something to stand on to say this is why.
Well, when
X club is corrupt as well.
You deflect them.
You only bring up referee like decisions.
No.
And that's not enough.
No. That's not right. No. I've talked about the Cayman Islands things. I've talked about the hiring of also referees. I've talked about money aspects with also tax authorities, the contractual situations with Cristiano. There are plenty. I mean, at hand, I don't have it now, but I've brought certain things forward, and I would like to bring them forward for you to plant a seed of investigative, maybe Kiyan, the journalist, to also think critical from another, from your own perspective, and maybe practice some self-reflection, self-criticism, if you like.
I'm totally up for it. Listen, I think we all need to work on self-reflection, including myself, rather than pointing fingers at everybody. But you asked me if I think any other club has paid Negreira, and my answer to that specific question is no. And that referee you brought up in a previous podcast that Real Madrid paid was an inactive referee. He wasn't
prior to being hired. That is incorrect. And in fact, he was a referee during that time. Yes, he was. And
he was on a leave.
He was on a leave. Where Barca were paying Negreira.
He was on a leave at that time. It's
very
proven.
Difficult to talk with you like that.
I'm not. But yeah, it's
proof.
I'm sorry I'm sorry I'm difficult to talk to. But here. I'm going based on what I know. Like the thing is, you're talking about like taxes and stuff like that. Like all that stuff has already been exposed. Like Ronaldo tax and stuff, that's already gone to the legal side, and no Real Madrid fan will agree with the tax evasion of Ancelotti, of Xabi Alonso, of Cristiano Ronaldo, of Neymar. Like no one excuses that at all, and I think that's already gone to court.
With Cristiano, I'm not talking about his tax evasion. I'm talking about Madrid. It was something, and I don't have the case at hand, so I'm not going to articulate it in the best possible way. So therefore not justice to it, but I would like to. But it had something to do with Madrid basically pressuring Hacienda into making sure that Cristiano was going to receive his full salary without having to pay certain percentage of tax that he was obliged to pay. That then didn't happen. And again, there are so many of these cases, money coming in. It was like 400 million from Cayman Islands. There's things that have been put out in terms of with the doping cases of Sergio Ramos at the time that just don't see the light of day, that make it for like one spat little headline and then it just disappears. Nobody talks about it. It's not seen the light of day and it's shoved under the carpet and it's hush hush. And it's referees or journalists that get taken off of certain assignments or newsrooms or departments and assigned to other places. And it's a shuffling of that. And listen, yes, I'm going to say this as well. I continue to think that the vast majority of maybe Madridistas listening to this podcast or that are not privy to the entire history or maybe culture and background of the powerful institution that is Real Madrid, with Florentino Perez, the most powerful man, I would say, in Spain currently, and this entire history of Spain, to not know about that, to not want to know about, to not want to learn more about it, and basically just turn a blind eye and rather be naive about it, I think it's not doing justice to the entire story. I would have far more respect for somebody to say, you know what, I know it all, but that's just how it is. That's how the world works. You know, there's no denying that the US is the global powerhouse and it basically maneuvers its way around the world doing whatever it wants. And what everybody deems as conspiracy theories when certain countries are overthrown and governments, people get put into places in political powers in other countries. And, you know, we talk about all these conspiracy theories. It's not. It's the CIA working, you know, on the mission to basically have global control and power in the benefit of the United States. This happens in more, you know, regional and more micro economies and situations as well. And, you know, Real Madrid is a powerhouse. The power you guys have is undeniable, irrefutable. Good for you. I texted you in one of our latest text message exchanges. I said, it's easy to be a Madridista. I genuinely believe that. It's easy and great. Good for you. Like, it's, you know, good. I'm not saying you guys didn't deserve the 14 Euro Cups. You guys don't deserve the league titles that you won. I like to argue about it, like to debate about it. But there's no denying that you guys are the most successful club in football history in the entire world. Therefore, you know, you could say the greatest. Success, most successful, the greatest. It's undeniable.
Diego, remember when I said that there's a difference between bad apples and criminal apples? There are moral dilemmas and all this stuff and actual illegal activity. What we're talking about with Barcelona is illegal activity. What you're talking about with Real Madrid, and you're not going to like the answer, and I feel like I'm not going to shake you out of it anyway. But like you brought up, you continue to bring in, I believe the former referee you're speaking about is Carlos Mejia Davila, that one, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was retired in 2009 when Real Madrid paid him. And they paid him so that he could come in as a retired referee to talk to the player.
When did he retire?
2009.
How long? And then he was hired by Real Madrid.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Like he quit his. Yeah. No, I know that. Okay,
so what's the issue here?
I knew that.
Yeah. So what's the issue with that? Because the reason they brought him in is because he would, as a retired referee, teach the players what you can get away with on the field and what you can't, and kind of teach them, right? But he's not out there refereeing Real Madrid's games. Do you understand? That's a huge difference.
I know that.
Okay.
Listen, if you think that all he was there for to teach professional football players what you can and cannot do on the field, then it would be as dumb as me admitting that all Barca paid Negreira for were like refereeing videos and whatever.
Much different, because Real Madrid very publicly did this and brought him in, and he was always there, like visible, and not refereeing Real Madrid's games and having influence that way. Negreira was more under the table, and Barca cannot prove any exchange with him. And the other thing is, you brought up, and this, I know you're going to hate this answer, but it's the truth. And I'm not going to say what's right and what's wrong, but you brought up the Cayman Islands thing several times. There was nothing wrong with that either. That was a public thing. This is extremely common in the finance world to set up these funds in the Cayman Islands. And you can talk about loopholes if you don't like loopholes, but it's not illegal what they did, and it was a non-issue. So I feel like a lot of the stuff that you bring up are not actually illegal things. They're just kind of are non-issues. Like this, if Real Madrid do something illegal, I'll be the first person to say, you got to be punished for it. Like, but I feel like you're mistaking power and success and connections and knowing how to deal with things with illegal activity. And I think that's where there's a line that seems... I
think when you're so powerful, it's easier to color outside the lines and not have somebody knock on your door and ask you questions for it. I do think that. Now, I think I'll admit that me bringing these cases forward is very sloppy. It's, not well researched. And I would like to do that with the right time, with the right approach, with the right mindset between you and I. And me gather as much information and just putting it out there and say, well, what do you make of this? These are topics, of course. I mean, tax, finances are not my strength. They're not my forte. So I don't like discussing something that is out of my reach or realm, let's say, of understanding, and therefore talking about it. You talk about the referee, that at least we agree that he retired. Like, the reason for him leaving his job as a referee was to be hired by Real Madrid at the time, meaning that in 2009 or all of his years before that, he was one of the referees that was supposedly under the influence of Barca, right? Because all the referees were corrupted by Barca, quote unquote, paying them off. This is during the Negreira era, is what I'm trying to refer to. So if all the referees were corrupt, then what were Real Madrid doing hiring corrupt referees? Look, I just think that there is a lot more that meets the eye. I would like Pandora's box to be open and the truth to come out. And, if there is just one culprit, then by all means make us the black sheep. We should be made an example of, and we have to deal with the consequences and be open and upfront about it. I would just like to know, as Mundo put out there, that if these sources that are now whispering that there are more teams of not just the first, but the second Spanish division paying Negreira, well, then may they be revealed as well. And let's discuss
for sure
why all these payments were to this person.
For sure. And if Real Madrid happens to be one of those teams and that day comes and it's proven, then we got to talk about that. There's no question. I guess I am a little bit... that would be fascinating to see. I'm kind of skeptical of that, just in the sense that there was such a rush from every team in the league to come forth and speak about this. And I just feel like if they were also...
That's a little suspicious itself. Maybe that's a little suspicious.
Maybe it's the psychological, reverse psychology. I don't know. But it does feel like, because
it reminds me of the R. Kelly reaction.
Yeah, let's not bring up that guy's name. But it would just kind of dumbfound me that these teams all know that they can be and will be audited too, if that ever came to that. So, But yeah, I am like, it is interesting to see the complete 180 of Real Madrid from saying nothing to not even being neutral, but just taking out the machine gun now. And that's super interesting to see that 180. I don't know if that surprised you.
They're playing 4D chess.
Did that surprise you?
It did surprise me.
Mm.
Yeah. It did. It caught me off guard, like a lot of this stuff does. But I mean, I can't be surprised anymore. Maybe I should say no, because we're living in a time, Kiyan, where, I mean, honestly, the only thing that would surprise me if God would come down from the heavens, and to all our religious listeners, please take no offense, but maybe I should say I wouldn't even be surprised if I see aliens tomorrow, because what can surprise us still today?
I'd be surprised if we saw aliens tomorrow. But
you would. Well, that's
look, if the truth is, if God came down from the sky and exposed all of us would be completely exposed as really bad people. That's the truth.
Experiments gone very wrong.
Luckily for you and I, we are not huge public institutions that.
Not yet.
Not yet. Yeah, Churros one day. Tell you what, if Churros gets exposed one day for paying Negreira, I would consider that successful. I feel like we would have gotten somewhere. What was I going to say? Yeah, okay, so Real Madrid's stance on this, complete 180. I'm assuming you followed all this stuff on the weekend with Real Madrid TV releasing videos?
Yes. God damn. I would like to see the newsroom in Real Madrid TV. These guys having a field day.
Well, it's funny, like, I don't know if there's the equivalent of who the Diego equivalent of Real Madrid TV is, but
it is.
Well, we follow David Alvarez, who works for Real Madrid. I don't know if you know him or know of him, but he's extremely vocal on Twitter, and he was like, he's like, we're releasing this video today on Real Madrid TV. It exposes Iturralde and all the stuff he's saying, and he's kind of this own. I guess he's not shy at all. Like, he's very, very much driving the train on Real Madrid TV about this. So there's no room for political. There's no room for political correctness. Really, it's just like full steam ahead. Barca are corrupt. Real Madrid are clean. And this is why. Here's the video of Iturralde.
That is exactly what surprised me. Like, we would never be allowed to do that. In fact, we kind of, of course, we talk about Real Madrid, and on Barca Live, we would, have little, say, quote unquote, jokes about the rivalry. But in fact, even when we did that, it would be called to our attention and kind of be like, hey, no joking around between institutions, and keep the other name out your mouth, basically, and just focus on Barca. That was kind of how it was, like, focus on Barca.
The only way this would turn positive is if someone from Barca said, keep my name out of your fucking mouth. Laporta just comes out. Florentino, next time he brings up Barca, keep my club's name. That would be the only thing that would make this whole thing worth it. Corruption was worth it.
This is brilliant. It is brilliant. I didn't even make that connection before you did it, and it's brilliant. I wish we had a listener that could actually make that into a meme. Will Smith with like Laporta's head going up to a Chris Rock fifth. Keep my club's name out your fucking mouth. But to get back to the question or topic at hand, yeah, I couldn't even imagine us in a newsroom, or any of my colleagues for that matter, putting a video, a compilation out there like that is so attacking. So that was surprising. The fact that, as you put it, and rightfully put it, it was a complete 180 to, we're not saying anything, ride or die Superliga, to then say, fuck it, that's it. They're guilty. Fuck them. We're not going over.
It's bad when even the Super League.
We're not coming over for lunch anymore.
Yeah, it's bad. Even the Super League, which was holding you together, they're like, we don't need this Super League anymore. Fuck it. We don't need it. They're all out. It's just us. I think, okay, so my read on that situation
is... There's no lunch happening now on Sunday.
Well, is that true? Because there was a report from Gerard Romero, I
know.
think it was, that if Real Madrid don't apologize, Barca are not having the lunch with them. Did you see that?
Yes,
How
that's
awkward is that? But they're gonna sit next to each other at the Clásico. So awkward.
It'll be like the Gaspar era when Gaspar and Florentino, who were friends actually.
They were friends.
Papa Flo did that move, pulled the Figo on him, rock pulled him with Figo. The moments where they were together in front of the cameras were cringe.
But they were still friends after that, weren't they? Even after
friends.
The Figo thing.
They were still friends. Yeah.
Florentino was weird in the sense that he doesn't seem to care about conflict or awkwardness. And he just treats it normally. Like even Nasser Al Khalifi, like they seem to hate each other, but then they sit next to each other and they smile and they I guess it's just
understand how powerful that man is.
Well, I guess
it's
just
to be Flo. It's good
if
to
you're
be powerful.
If you're president of a club, I guess you just have to understand that this comes with the territory. You have to be able to deal with these situations. I'd want to be president just so I can sit next to Ronaldo Nazario for like 90 minutes. That'd be worth it on its own. But my read on the situation is, and I haven't
rest his head on his belly.
It'd be nice. I haven't spoken to David Alvarez about this, but my guess is that it feels like
look him up.
It feels like Real Madrid almost were hoping that Barcelona would get prosecuted, because their stance was, and Butragueño I think said this, like, we're staying out of this until there's a legal action taken, and then as soon as the legal action was taken, they were like, all right, it's our time to shine, boys. Suit up. And they told everybody at Real Madrid TV, bring your A game. We're going to go full force, full steam ahead, and we're going on the offensive. Fuck Super League. We don't need them. We're just going full steam ahead. And that's just a really interesting stance, because it really felt like Real Madrid and Barcelona, and maybe I'm wrong and maybe I'm just misreading the history of the two clubs, it feels like we're closer than ever in these last few years. And that just seems to have changed all of a sudden. Very, very interesting.
Yeah. Well, and it goes back to it's a complete circle that we're doing here on today's pod. You see that, Kiyan? It comes back to the feistiness and the bitterness and the rivalry, the dismay towards the other side being back now in the Clásico, because nobody really liked the watered down version. We never did on this pod anyway. We like the chispas, we like the sparks that fly off during Clásicos, and I don't think you can do that being buddies and hugging it up. So yeah, I'm looking at David Alvarez's profile. Since 18 years commentating and presenting on Real Madrid TV. Dude, I was talking about that with a colleague today. You know, there's 18 years at the same organization and the same place.
Pretty crazy.
I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. I
feel like he has got a
conversation for
Friday. Well, he seems to enjoy. I honestly don't know him personally. I've only spoken to him digitally, and that, so I don't really know much about him. But it is interesting to see, like you said, the difference between Real Madrid TV and Barcelona TV. And have you scrolled down his profile to see, like, it's crazy. Like, this is a Real Madrid employee, and it's just anyways, he obviously would not be doing this if he didn't have the green light from the club, because obviously you're just going to get in trouble otherwise. So it's fascinating to see. Yeah. He's just been on Twitter nonstop posting referee stuff.
I see.
Yeah.
I see it.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't really want to know if we want to talk about football anymore, but
the game, it's like, it feels almost irrelevant. It's like, what? There was a game.
What? Okay, here, let's talk about the game.
What game?
What did you think about Gavi's headers, the flying heading tackles?
Oh.
Are you not worried?
Plant?
Yeah.
I am worried.
It's so dangerous, man. I'm not even
I love his attitude. I love his spirit. I love his character. I love his grit. I love his intensity, his raw passion mixed with talent. But there are certain things that I hold my heart, and somebody needs to talk to the boy.
I don't remember. I don't know if it was the first one or second one. There was two. One was where he literally tackles with his head on the ground. But there's another one. I think maybe it was the second one where he dives with his head towards the ball while an athletic player is kicking the ball full force.
Yeah.
And I actually am worried, like, because that could go really, really wrong. If the athletic player kicks Gavi in the head, there's like a chance of paralysis there. Like, it's actually really concerning to me. Like, beyond the rivalry and stuff, as a human being, it's like really scary. Like, he's got to be able to. I also don't know why statistically it made sense to, like, mathematically, physically, it made more sense to use his head instead of his foot in that situation. That's another thing. I don't know how we calculated that decision to go with his head. It
reminded me. You probably don't remember this, but it reminded me of a similar play that Eric Abidal did years ago during the Pep era.
Okay.
I think it was against Sevilla, but it was a similar, actually a different situation. He was the last defender, and he kind of slips, and in a last desperate attempt, successful attempt, may I add, he basically face plants on the ball. He's on, like, worm style, jumps on the ball with a last, like, little gasp to get the ball to Valdez. And yeah. But anyway, it seemed awkward at the time. Like I said, somebody needs to talk to the boy. I agree with you, man. It gets dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's just literally worried about. Yeah, I'm also worried about people he might hurt, but I'm also worried about him. So that's one thing I took away from the Athletic game, other than the fact that Athletic's story of their season, they can't score goals, and story of Barca's season is
that was a hostile crowd, man. That game
typically is at San
like,
Mamés.
Stadiums, yeah, but fuck, man. Like, fans have it out for us right now. It is very.
You're becoming PSG
away games now. It is very scary playing away games, man. Fucking crowds are going crazy. Bernabeu, Catedral, and as you said, rightfully so. It's always a good atmosphere there, but there's, like, you just feel hate now, and it's, like, noticeable even watching it on TV.
I won't lie, I'm pretty concerned about Clásico going to Camp Nou next week. You guys also have 1 week rest between these games. We got to play Liverpool on Wednesday.
We need it.
Yeah.
Yeah, fuck. Let's hope for...
I do oddly feel... Right? What? Oh, the Real Madrid game tomorrow, yeah. I do feel oddly more relaxed about games in the Camp Nou than at the Bernabeu for some reason.
Less pressure, I guess, for you.
Less pressure. I think that's what it is. I feel like both of these teams seem to do... I'm sure the numbers disagree with what I'm saying, but it does feel like there's definitely moments in Clásico history where the team traveling to the away stadium, they thrive in that atmosphere a little bit more than they do at home for whatever reason. And for the Bernabeu, it could be just a matter of a lot of pressure and previous wounds in Clásico at their home. I don't know, but I do feel kind of like it's nice to get away from the Bernabeu for these next two Clásicos for whatever reason. It's just a hunch. I don't know, but I am worried about it because I think you guys have more rest in between games now, and our minds are all over the place, and the league is also very done at that point when we go there on Sunday. There was potential for it to not be kind of done if you guys had lost to Athletic, but that didn't happen. I feel like I don't really know what to make of Sunday's Clásico anyway. Unless you guys get a point deduction, which you won't, but I will water this one down, but I won't water the Copa one down. I think the Copa one is going to be lot at stake there.
Which
but
you'll be here for.
I got to talk to you about that. I know. I wish. I know. It's and when I tell you the reason off air, you're going to be
in 2 weeks.
I know.
Oh, okay.
I'll tell you the reason off air, but it's an annoying reason for me. But I can't make it to that one. All right, man. You want to wrap it up here?
Let's do it.
I did have a really controversial football topic, but it would have need to have been brought up at the beginning of the podcast, and it would have made you really angry.
More than what we've been discussing already?
Yeah, this one would have really made you angry, and I don't think we can get into it now, but we'll save it for maybe next Monday. Oh, next Monday is after Classico. Maybe I'll save it for the summer.
Drop it as a teaser. Drop it as a teaser, and we'll discuss it maybe on the next one.
No, it's just it's related to the GOAT debate. Leave it there.
Oh.
We'll talk about it. My recency bias from the World Cup has passed. I'm ready to bring out the guns again.
I noticed. I already don't think I haven't noticed. I've noticed, man. I see your tweets, man.
We'll save it for the summertime. Right. When there's less to talk about. All right, man. Great chatting.
Okay. All right, dude. Yes,
right.
as always.
Peace.